Hello everyone, and thank you for attending to this new session on SUSECON 21, SUSE console for SAP applications. Well, first of all, let me introduce myself. My name is Xavier Arbulu, and I have been working at SUSE since 3 years ago, almost. And I have been part of the SHAP team, where we work in the Slash for SAP product together with the HA cluster capabilities. And as commented in this session, I will uh, show a new journey, a new project that we started some months ago. That is this new SUSE console for SAP applications, where the aim is to manage your SAP deployments using a web browser to facilitate all of our operations we do on SAP. Uh, Previously in SUSECON 19 and SUSECON 20, I already presented different sessions about SAP automation, deployment automation projects, where I showed how we can deploy automatically different SAP landscapes. We can find this session here in these YouTube links if you are curious. And in this session, I will talk about the evolution of those projects. Okay. That being said, this new project and the presented ones in the previous sessions are complementary. They can live together, but the new one is based on them. Uh, so yeah, the name of the project is SUSE Console for SAP Applications version 1. Uh, don't look that much to this version 1. This means that we already started working in a second version that will have more features. Initially, we just wanted to create a prototype, a most uh, minimal valuable product to show you guys all of the capabilities that we provide at SUSE, and most importantly, to get feedback from you to see if we are going in the correct direction or if you have different needs. So this project is hosted in GitHub in the SUSE repository, and it's based in a Blue Horizon project uh, that as well was started at SUSE. Below you can see again that this project is based in the original fork of Blue Horizon and the HASAP Terraform deployments project. That's the main project that I showed in this two session that you can see on the links. You can actually access the sessions there on YouTube. And these two projects just uh, combine and create the new SUSE console for SAP applications. So these are the agenda that I will follow in this session. It will have four major topics, starting with why automation projects are useful in SAP environments. Okay, I want to give a brief context about the automation project's usefulness, especially in SAP, and why all of these needs have created uh, this project eventually. The second point is what is the SUSE console for SAP applications. Obviously, we want to go deeper in it and see which are the capabilities that it offers. And in third position, I will just show you how to deploy your SUSE console for SAP applications. There are different options, but in this way, in this session, I will do a short demonstration about one of them. And finally, once we have deployed the SUSE console for SAP application, I will just show it how to use it and which are the options and the views that eventually you will see when you have deployed. But before going with it, an important disclaimer, the presented image is on preview on the Azure Marketplace, and it's only available for a selected number of Azure subscriptions. This means that the image is still on some kind of beta state and is not available for everyone. Obviously, if everyone wants to use it, you can just ask on request and we will just be really glad to add your subscription to be used yeah, to use this image. And second, the image is only available on Azure right now. We know that there are other important cloud providers that are supporting SAP landscapes and SAP workloads. But by now, to just validate the product, we created it on Azure. And this will be the platform that I will use today to show in action the tool. And with that said, let's go with the first topic that I showed in the agenda, why automation projects are useful in SAP environments. Well, the short answer is that SAP environments are complex. So for any user that has been dealing with SAP and mostly in the infrastructure layer, you will know that it's not something that you learn in one day and something that you can manage super easily. Um, and why is this? To list some of the few issues we commonly face in this traditional infrastructure management, just to number a few of them. The first one is that SAP applications are complex. You know that they are not just single machine applications, they are not even single applications. They just are distributed environments where multiple applications work together and they need to work all of them fine in order to provide the correct functionalities. And more than that, as they are pretty complex and we can have one, two, three, four, multiple machines, the deployment demands big effort. Uh, this is quite obvious, but it's a really important point to be aware of. The second issue is usually that reproducing the deployment process is pretty tedious. There are a lot of operations that we need to run in the different machines, and this obviously it's pretty error prone as we need to repeat once again and again all of this operation in each individual node with a slight difference, and in each of them we might do some errors that eventually can create an unstable environment. Third, well, if you already try to deploy a SAP environment, you know that this takes time. So if you know what you are doing, this can be hours or days, but most of the times this can take even weeks, months. And our aim was to reduce this time to have at least working environment in some few minutes or hours. Uh, Other thing that most of the users struggle is the cluster solution. So yeah, the complexity multiplies when the deployment is extended to a cluster solution. We know that the pacemaker-based cluster is one of the most important products that we offer in our SLS for SAP product, but this doesn't mean that it's simple to use and configure. So the deployment tries to make this easier. And finally, all of the things that I mentioned are day one operations where we create the environment, but we cannot forget about day two operations when the deployment is done. So, in order to see how is going our deployed solution, basically to monitor the different parts that belong to this landscape, becomes really challenging because, well, each of the tools have their own monitoring platforms, and we try to just make a unified one here. Um, to show you an example about why SAP is complex, so just talking about the SAP HANA database, here we can see that if we want to have a highly available database, we have multiple scenarios. We can have the performance optimized, cost optimized, chain topology, scale out, and all of them are composed by multiple machines, multiple disks, multiple different applications, and that makes the deployment pretty difficult. In this session, we will cover the performance optimized scenario. It's one of the most common scenarios, but just I wanted to show you and make you aware that, well, it's difficult to understand all of these different options, and our aim is to make this even easier. So finally, let's go with the session, most important part of the session, that is the SUSE console for SAP applications. And here I want to show you what it is. Okay. So the SUSE console for SAP application is a web-based application which helps to deploy, monitor, and manage your SAP environments. And among its capabilities, we can find first the option to deploy SAP HANA database environment, including our pacemaker-based HA solution. Okay. The second is that it deploys a monitoring infrastructure to, well, as its name says, to monitor in day two operation what's going on in the database and in the created cluster. Third, we can check the applied subnodes. If you are aware about what subtune is, this just applied different uh, tuning solutions to our Linux kernel and different applications in order to have the best performance in our SAP applications. And finally, it provides other resources like the option to copy paste the SSH command to access the machines, um, a link to the Azure portal where the deployment is created, etc. Now we will go with the part to show you how to deploy the SUSE console for SAP application. So as I was commenting, this still is on preview. Uh, but for the subscriptions that are whitelisted, that have the rights to access the image, they will find it this way in the Azure Marketplace, SUSE console for SAP applications. As I commented at the beginning, there are different ways to deploy the console. So I can just number three of them. The first one is using the Azure Web Portal. Okay, this is a pretty straightforward and visual one, and anyone that used the Azure portal in the past will know more or less how it looks like. And this is the one that I will use in the demo today. The second option is using the Azure client. This is the command line tool that Azure provides. It just does more or less the same that we do in the web portal. And finally, we can even use Terraform. If you attended my sessions in the past on the deployment automation project, you will mostly know that I like Terraform. It provides a lot of different options to deploy our machines in the different cloud providers, and it's other third option. But as commented today, we will go with the first one. And with that said, I will show you today a demo about how we can create the console. So let me share right now the browser where I have my Azure portal here. And these are the steps that we need to follow, okay? So when we are in the home page of Azure, we are going to go here to create a resource option. And once this is done, we will just see all of the options that we can create. In our case, we need to go to the compute because we want to create a virtual machine that will host the application. So once we came here, we will need to create a virtual machine. So we will click here, create. And here we need to configure the application. So in my case, I will create a new resource group, SUSECON demo. I will select a name. It's important to store the name of the VM because later on it will be used to access the machine. And here, this is already loading my previous images, but I would go here to see all images. This will show all of the images available in the marketplace. But if I have this offering, I would have here the option to see the private offers, okay? So I will go to view private offers. And here I will have the SUSE console for SAP application. So I will click select. And here it will just gives me the option to select the generation. So I will choose generation 2. And with that, I can use the default VM type, okay? We can do much more configuration, but right now I will just go to review and create because I just want to create some kind of default environment. This will just do all of the checks for me. And after waiting some few seconds, we will have the summary. You can obviously check all of the items that the deployment will create. And finally, we will click here, create. This will take some few minutes. Well, it gives the option to download the key. So I will download it just in case I want to access in the future. So I will just paste it here in my home. And finally, the deployment is in progress. As commented, this might take some few seconds or minutes. So we will wait for a while. This will create the virtual network, the public IP address that later on we will use to access the application, the security group, etc. The item that takes longer is the virtual machine creation. So bear with me for a while. This is one of the steps that takes a bit of time, but it's not that many. Okay, so finally the virtual machine is created, so we can click here, go to resource. And the virtual machine will have a public IP address, okay? So we will copy this and we will open it in a new session, okay? So this will just prompt us authentication pop-up. So as commented before, here as username, we need to put the name of the VM that we selected. And for the password, we need to put our Azure subscription. All of these big strings that we have in our subscription, this is the value that we need to put here on the password. So once I have done this, I will click OK. And finally, we have here the console. Okay, the console comes with a introduction page and a left sidebar menu where we can see all of the steps. But before that, I will just um, continue showing some of the slides that I had before going to the next step. So once we have deployed, we are going to start using the application. So I want to just repeat and say this back again, that we need to access here to the machine. So for that, we need to use the virtual machine name as username. The password is the Azure subscription ID. Okay, so you can grab this from your Azure account. And later on, this provides a lot of different views. We have an introductory page. We have the option to select the SAP system size. Later on, this will start the deployment. And finally, we will have all of the monitoring pages. I just wanted to show them here in the slides before going on the demo to have some kind of background. But without further ado, let's go again back to the browser and continue with the demonstration. So we are here back again. Uh, this page just shows some information about the sizes, what you are going to create. It shows some other information about some pre-requirements we have. For example, we will need to have Azure Service Principal to create the machines. We will need to create a storage account to download the SAP information. So all of this is explained here. I won't go into the details, so this is more an informative thing, so you might need to read it when you start, and we will start the setup. Here we will choose the different sizes of the deployment. Obviously the demo is for the demonstrations, and later on we can choose among small or large applications. And here we can choose whether we want a HA or cluster solution or not. If we don't select this, it will create a single HANA database. Otherwise, if we choose to have a HA cluster and system replication option, this will create two machines hosting two different SAP databases working with the system replication option and with the HA cluster on top of this. So once we have this, it will just take us uh, to the configuration page. Here we will need to put a lot of information. We will need to put the deployment name. We will need to put a SSH key, public key that will give us access in the future. A lot of information about Azure, like the storage account, where the SAP installation software is located. You can find all of the description here below. The key, again, the subscription for Azure account, the client server, tenant, and some additional information. So to keep the secret of my account, I will just fill some common information. So here I can create the deployment with SUSECON. I will upload a key here. So I have some keys. I will fill up all of this later. Here we would choose the HANA configuration information. We would put some password. And here the path where we have the HANA installer. So give me 1 second to put all of the information. Okay, so once we have all of the information, we will click here on review and confirm. And this will lend us to the planning page. This will do some basic confirmations and checks to see that all of the information we posted is correct. and eventually it will show us the summary of the configuration that will be deployed later. This takes some few seconds. So here we see some basic settings, the resource group name that will be created, which are the nodes that will be created, in this case a SCSI server, 200 nodes, a Bastion host, a monitoring server, the security group, etc., etc. So finally we will come here and we will click on deploy to go to the deployment page. Here we have a task list that once we start the deployment will be start changing and showing the state. So everything we need to do is we need to click apply here. We will have here a notification saying that we will have all of the information below in the installation details checkbox. And once the deployment is started, we will start seeing all of the information here, and we will see that the information just changes. Okay, so I won't really wait all of the process, and I already have a deployment done, but this will just show the progress. So let me change to a deployment that I have already in place, and this would be the final result. Okay, so we would have here that all of the tasks are finished. We have the bar complete. We can come here to installation details to see all of the logs. Uh, and once this is done, we will click here on finish. Okay, that will lend us to the post deployment page. Initially, we will have this home page with some introductory information. And right now we will need to use this top menu to move among the different options. So one of the options is the monitoring. So once we click this, this will lend us here to the monitoring views. Uh, this is based right now in Grafana, and we have different options. So this one is about the HA cluster. So here we can see how the pacemaker cluster is working. We can see that we have two nodes, that we have all of the resources running. These are the resources. Everything is going perfectly fine. And besides that, we have the HANA databases views. So if I click here on PRD, that is the tenant that it was deployed, I can see all of the information about the database. So memory usage, CPU usage, total connections, etc. There are a lot of different options. And this is just refreshing all the time. Okay. Besides the monitoring, we have the tuning, where we can see which are applied subnodes on each node. You can apply that the two nodes that we created have the HANA solution applied, and we can see all of the individual subnodes that have been applied to the nodes. So here we can find the subnode identifier and the description, and that it has been applied. This is based on our product Subtune, and the information is coming from there. And finally, we have some additional resource stack where we can find some information of utility, like some of the SSH commands to access to the machine. We can just click here and copy the command to use it in our terminal. And it as well explains how to destroy and automate the deployment. For that, we will need to download all of the resources that the deployment is created, and clicking here in download. And after that, we can just follow all of the steps. And we as well offer some additional links that might be helpful. The first one is the Grafana web application link, where you can come here and see all of the grabs that we provide out of the console. They are some of them already on the console, but you can have them here. So if you want to change them for the customization or any other reason, you can come here and play. And finally, we have the link to the Azure portal that shows all of the resources that the deployment created. So here we will be able to visualize all of the created virtual machines, all of the attached disks, the availability sets, the load balancer, the network interfaces, etc. So this is everything that was created by the console project. And with that, we have already done all of the go through of the application. So I will go back to the slides and just finish the presentation with some wrapping up. So again, to wrap up, these are the three things that we have learned today on the session. The first one is that automation projects on SAP environments are really useful, especially to speed up deployments and to reduce the amount of potential errors that we might have if we do them manually. Second, we have learned how we can deploy the SUSE console. So you are able to run the deployment of the console in Azure Portal. And finally, we share the capabilities that the SUSE console for SAP applications provide around deployment, monitoring, and tuning. Okay. Now, how you can request a trial? If you want to use the project and give a try, you just need to send a mail to this account, trendtopproject at SUSE.com, saying that you want to use on the SUSE console for SAP applications. You will be asked to give your subscription ID of your Azure account, and eventually we will whitelist this subscription, and you will be able to access to the image in your Azure account. And last but not least, here's a list of some future plans that we have on the project. The first one is to extend the console usage to support more cloud providers. We know that other important cloud providers support SAP workloads, so we want to work on them as well. Second, we want to enable additional SAP applications as NetWeaver, S4HANA, and even different scenarios for SAP HANA databases, cost optimized, scale out, etc. Third, we want to enable the management of multiple SAP deployments. Right now, the console only supports and manages one deployment, actually the deployment created by the console itself, and we want to extend it to have the option to manage multiple deployments as you might have. And finally, we obviously will enable new features like a HE checker for static values, add already existing SAP environments to the console, tune the machines using the console, and well, advanced alerting and auto tuning mechanism to monitor everything we deployed and have lifetime uh, alerts. Here are some links of interest about all of our projects. All of them are hosted in GitHub, in the SUSE group or in the Cluster Labs group, so you might want to have a look and see how they are going, which is the progress, etc. With that said, I just wanted to thank you for attending. It was a pleasure to talk of this new project on SUSECON, and I just want to wish you a really nice day. So thank you again, and goodbye.